what is a project? And why it is useful to think in projects? How can this be helpful in turning our vision, our strategy into reality? And how can we effectively manage a project, manage a task and the communication in a project? These are some of the questions we are going to discuss, to explore this afternoon together. And I do hope this time will be helpful for each one of you. My name is Andrea Aresca. I'm from Turin, northwest of Italy. I'm a management engineer. I've been working for more than 10 years in a manufacturing company. And in 2018, I started consulting and training different kinds of organizations, both for-profit and non-profit, on the topic of management. At the moment, my main role is a program manager for a local university. So I manage projects, and I also teach how to manage projects. And this second thing is definitely easier. Let's start with some words from God. Isaiah 46. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. God is the ultimate creator, the maker. God had a vision for his word, for mankind, for his people, and he accomplished it. He accomplished making the heavens and the earth. He accomplished forming a people among nations, and he accomplished it in redemption, in Jesus Christ. And he will make in the future something even better, new earth and new heaven. And we are created into his image. And even more as children of God, we are called to reflect the image of this creator. We have the great privilege to be co-workers with God, building his kingdom into this world. I'm sure each one of you has a vision for your life, your ministry, your churches, your organization. Maybe this vision is not so clear, and I do pray that even in these days, God will help you understand better your vision. But having a vision is not enough. We need a strategy. We need to understand how to develop this vision. And of course, we don't want that this become a dream, this remain a dream, sorry. We want to execute this strategy. We want to turn our vision into reality. And I do think that projects, thinking in projects can be really useful in this, to turn our vision into reality, to be more effective in our execution. But first of all, what is a project? This is a question for you. When you see this symbol, I want you to speak. How would you define a project? Which words will you use to define a project?
An idea that has to be fulfilled.
An idea to be fulfilled. Great. Think also distinguishing what in your work is a project and what is not a project. Not everything, in most cases, you work on is a project. What defines a project also? Limited time, yes. Another way, specific. Yeah. Another way of saying it is it has a beginning and it has an end. Purpose, yes.
Includes multiple tasks.
Yeah, usually yes. Connected to each other, different people. It can have different level of complexity, yes.
That complement each other.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the things you said are also true for processes, for recurring tasks. But some of them are specific to a project. Anyone else? Any other hints?
If this team, there's people, if it's only your project, it's you, but people are a big part of it.
Yeah, usually projects involve a team. It can also be an individual project, technically. Yeah. But usually, yes. Let's read the definition from the Project Management Book of Knowledge, the most important book. A temporary endeavor. So you see the elements you already said. Undertaken to, and that's my favorite word, create. A project is a creative act. A unique, I don't think you said that. A project is unique. There may be similar projects, but the definition is that every project is unique in itself. To create what? A unique product, service, or result. And that's a very important element we want to consider. A project may be doing something that we are already doing, but with a different result. Improving it. So when we have a process, when we have some challenges, we want to improve the quality, the efficiency. We start from a certain point, we say the as is, and we want to reach a to be, a point where the same project is done in a different and better way. And the road from this point to that point is a project. Can you say any biblical example of a project? Pardon? Wow, the first one, the one I like the most. And the one we are going to refer to in these workshops. The first one, great. Couple of other ones? The tabernacle, yes. So a product in that case, a physical project. Okay, it's not easy to give a definition on this. So how to break a big project into smaller one, if calling the big one a project or not is something that you need to work on. We will see a tool after that will help us breaking down a bigger project into smaller one. It can be 12 months, it can be more, it can be less. The important is that it's manageable for you, okay? And of course, we start with writing something, and then we may change it according to the needs that evolve during the project, okay? We need to be flexible from the very beginning. Okay. When you will complete this list, maybe at home, you will have a very basic tool to manage projects. A project list. This is really the basic one. A list of projects you are currently working on, shared with your team, that you check and review regularly to see the progress on each one of them. This is definitely the most basic and very useful tool you can have. In this workshop, we are going to explore mainly how to manage a single project. But the reality is that we usually work on many projects at the same time. What we are actually doing is managing a project portfolio. Many different projects may be grouped together to be a program and connected to long-term goals, strategy, and vision. This is a connected but different topic. I just want to tell you one thing about managing different projects at the same time. And my suggestion is this. Be aware of the risk of multitasking. This is not true only for time management, for daily tasks like in the picture. This is true for projects. Remember this. The more projects we are working at the same time, simultaneously, individually or as a team, the less efficient we will be. Because switching from a project to another one requires time, requires attention, is a cost. And very briefly, I'm now going to show you a couple of tools, a couple of principles that can help minimize, at least take under control the number of projects we are working at the same time. The first one, very simple, very common, a board where you write. It can be also physical, not only digital, but you write in 3 columns all the projects you want to start, to do, the one you are working on, everyone should be on the same page on this, and the one you have completed. You keep them. And remember the rule. When you have an idea, when maybe your boss, let me say that, asks you to start a new project, you say, now, firstly, we need to put it in the to-do. And when we have space in the center column, we will start it. Another tool that is very useful is this matrix. It's not so complex as it seems. You can take in consideration all the projects you can start in a certain time, in a certain period, like here. You analyze them according to their impact, the value they are going to produce in your organization, and the effort, the cost, the time required. Of course, there are some easy options. High impact, low effort. If there are any, straight away, do as soon as possible. Avoid the high effort, low impact. The key actually is balancing the high and the low. They are called quick wins, and they are important. Of course, we may have a big vision. We want to reach the final wins. But to sustain the change, to motivate the team, we also need to execute some small project, small results, but they can give the encouragement to go on. Another tool, a project roadmap. Don't do this. At the beginning of the year, or maybe after summer, we start so many projects. And what happens? Many of them are postponed. But starting many things all together is not efficient. Do this instead. Schedule them along the year. Avoid working on too many projects at the same time. A final tool. Sometimes the best decision about a single project you are working on may be, can you guess it? Stop it, even if you already invested and worked on it. Think about the Apostle Paul. How many times God himself stopped him. He invested, he traveled, he was so near to that region. No, go somewhere else. Sometimes it's the wisest thing to do. And remember this also. Seeing it may be quite difficult. In psychology, it's called sunk cost bias. The more we have invested in a project, the more difficult it is to see when that road is not going to the results we are expecting. Let's now look at how to manage a single project. This is the project life cycle. This is a management theory, quite intuitive. Different phases. There's a life in the project. Each phase has its own challenges and tools. What do you see in this process? Where is the execution? In the middle. What's before execution? Planning. And that's the main point. Plan before doing. It may be so simple, but actually there are recent research, academic research, that can be summarized in one thing. Most of the projects fail because of the lack of planning. And now we refer to our Bible project, the one that was quoted. We can call it the Jerusalem Walls Project. You know the story. Nehemiah had a vision. He prayed for it. There are many, many good examples in that book. He went to Jerusalem, and he didn't start straight away to rebuild the walls. What did he do? He planned. He went to Jerusalem, and he was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, and I had a few men with me. And I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. Plan before doing. It was not just walking around the walls. It was carefully analyzing the situation, and we will see the results. What's project planning? There are many different aspects, many different tools, but very briefly, the first thing we need to define at the very beginning is the end. Start defining the final goal. It's sometimes quite easy. You want to build a house, we have a drawing, we have a 3D rendering, or even virtual reality, and it's quite clear what we want to reach. But there are other kind of projects that are not so easy to define in the term of the final goal. And it's one of the reasons sometimes some projects may not finish, seem they not finish forever, because you haven't a clear answer to this question. What do you need to see to say that the project is completed? For the creation of a product, again, it's quite easy. But for our other kind of project, it's really the most challenging question. Now, the first point is the end. You need to be clear on how the accomplishment of the project will be like, what's the final destination, and now you need to understand which is the road. And the first tool you can use, maybe you are already using it, maybe not calling it that way, is the work breakdown structure. Very simple. You start with the final goal, the final deliverable, especially useful for complex projects, and you break down into additional levels, and you stop when you have actually a task list, a work package list that you can manage, that you can schedule, that you can organize. This is a way of seeing it, but usually we have a spreadsheet, a list, and you have simply a list of tasks. There are also other columns, we will mention them later, but this is very, very important, especially if you are working with other people in a team. You need to call the task in the same way. You need to be clear on all the things that need to be done to complete the project. And one of the goals in doing this kind of analysis is to be sure that you have a complete task list. You don't want to miss something. It can be very dangerous or risky during the project and realize, oh no, we forget doing this, we forget the resources for this. Okay, so this is the starting point. And you should refer to it in every phase, in every meeting. Everyone in the team should know this, and this should be reviewed and updated regularly. What about time and money? You said that every project requires some resources. We need to work on it. We need to allocate time, money on it. It is very important to plan it. You know this parable of Jesus. I know in the context is not project management. It's about the cost of discipleship. But the principle, I think, is true even in this context. Before starting to build something, that's a project, we need to sit down, slow, and count the cost. What shall we need in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of skills, in terms of availability, space, and so on. To do that, start from the tool we have just seen. You need to have that. And then, for example, considering time, you can estimate the time required by each of the tasks you listed. How to do that? A project is new, and so how can I estimate something new? I can look to past experiences, similar projects. And as you read, to do that, you need to have a way to track the time, the cost of the projects of the past, so you can use that experience in the future. Or you can ask experts. How will this take? What can be the cost of this? Which kind of skills are required to accomplish that task? These are questions you can ask to experts. And we may eventually talk a bit more, if you like, about this in the Q&A. It's very important to estimate the duration of a project, to be aware of the task dependencies. So you have a list of tasks, but it's quite intuitive. Some of the tasks you can do at the same time, simultaneously. For other tasks, you need that something else is completed before. And again, for building a house, it's quite clear which are the dependencies. But for other kind of projects, changing a process, starting a new venue, a new service, a new line of business, sometimes we are stuck during a project because we didn't consider that we needed some task completed before starting another one. And this has an impact on the duration of the project. About scheduling, I just show you very briefly some tools you can use to define the schedule and visualize it. The simplest one, a milestone plan. You define some specific event, usually the end of a phase, and you make a plan. For example, for opening a new venue, when you finalize the project, or when you start the construction, or where you open it. 3 milestones. Gantt diagram, very known. So you represent when the task will be performed along the time of the project. Or if you want to focus on task dependency, you can analyze and calculate what is called the critical path. It's very intuitive. When a project has a strict deadline, you need to know which task can be delayed and which task cannot be delayed. You see in this simple graph, task A, D, and E are the longest path in this network. And if you delay task A or D, you will have a delay in the whole project. While task B and C, you have some margin. And that's very important. If you want to manage a project effectively on the aspect of time, you need to know before the impact of a potential delay. Let's go back again now. We are still in the planning phase. I'm spending a lot of time on this, but that's on purpose. Jerusalem Walls project. What do we read in chapter 3? The building of the wall, but magically, everyone knows where to work. No. Nehemiah planned and gave instruction, and that's the result. This is not just the result of planning of Nehemiah, I know, but I think he really made a plan and communicated it. Then Elisha, the high priest, rose up with his brothers, the priests, and they built the ship gate. And next to him, the men of Jericho built, and next to them, Zaccur, the son of Imri, built, and so on for almost all the chapter. Who is doing what? Nehemiah answered to that question. It's very important that we define in the planning phase, starting from the task, which are the roles and responsibilities. Another thing that is important throughout all the project, but it's also part of the planning, is the communication. Communication is the key factor in the management of a project. Communicate, communicate, communicate. This is probably the best piece of advice I can give you today. Of course, you have to define the role, project manager, project team, stakeholders, don't forget them. They are the people inside or outside the organization that who are not directly involved in the execution of the project, who have some sort of interest and impact in the project. You need to take in consideration them. After doing this, it's very good to define the tools you will use to communicate, the frequency. We will have daily short meeting, weekly, monthly with the stakeholders, for example. An important part of communication is defining the expectation. Not understanding and define this at the very beginning is one of the most common causes of conflict and tension during the execution of the project. Execution, very briefly, not because it's not important, but just a couple of points. We initiate the project, we plan it, we, of course, need to accomplish it, and so we need to pass from the vision to specific tasks that, in addition to the recurrent one, probably most of you as a role or job is performing some task recurrently on a daily and weekly basis, and in addition to that, there are also the tasks connected to a project. And that's actually the main challenge of working in project. They add to something that we already need to do. What I think is the big obstacle in execution are distractions. New ideas, challenges, good things we are required to, and what's happening to a project, especially when there is not a deadline, we postpone it. We postpone it. Again, Nehemiah is a great example. He had distraction, both inside and outside, especially the one from outside were very bad. They wanted to kill him, actually. What was Nehemiah's reply? Yes, this is a great sentence. I'm doing a great work. Nehemiah had a vision and has a deeper understanding of the value of that brick he was working on. And I cannot come down. If we know that this project is a key element in the development of our vision, we need to stay focused on that. We need to save time to work on that task that will move the project forward. And we'll often need to learn to say no, to stay focused on it. But it all starts with the acknowledgement and understanding of the great work we are doing. We need to connect the specific task of a project to the bigger vision. We are most at the end. Very briefly, another thing I want to say about execution, we need to be flexible. A critical attitude is agility, especially during the execution of the project, because we know that sometimes, or even often, things don't go the way we planned. And another important point, since sometimes things don't go the way we planned, we need to plan before doing, but we also sometimes need to go back, where we will check the advancement of the project and replan after doing. But we can't do that if we don't have a plan. So we need to have a plan, check our advancement, the progress of the project according to the plan, and eventually change it. And another point, sometimes it's impossible or unuseful planning too much. So sometimes planning is always useful. But according to the kind of project, we need to understand the appropriate level and way of planning. When the context is very variable and uncertain, I can't make a plan for each day. I need to be flexible. Or when we don't know at the beginning what it actually takes to accomplish the project. Sometimes we don't know the road, especially when we are undertaking a very innovative project, or when we don't know what our customer, clients, user actually wants. Sometimes we need to start producing, creating something like a prototype, see how it works, see if this can really be the one thing we need in our process, in our organization, and then do another step. This is what is called nowadays Agile project management. Not a waterfall, like building a house, but we frequently deliver something and check if it works. Finally, again in the book of Nehemiah, that's the end. So the wall was finished on the 12th day of the Mount Elul in 52 days. The importance of finishing. Sometimes there are projects that even during the execution can produce some benefits. But sometimes, unless we reach the 100%, there's no value. You need to launch the new website. You need to open the venue. So we need to reach 100% completion. And finishing a project is also a unique and very valuable opportunity. Firstly, to thank and celebrate God. This is another beautiful verse. They perceived, the people outside, the people around Jerusalem, they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. The end of a project is a wonderful opportunity to acknowledge God's work and give glory to Him. It's also a unique opportunity to thank and acknowledge the project team. Give feedback to the people you have been working with. Often at the end of a project, we think to the next one. But it is good to stop, to have what is called a close-out meeting. Everything is done, and we want to stop and acknowledge God and the people. And it's also a unique opportunity to learn from the experience. What have we done well? Good things. Is there something that we forgot in the planning? We overlooked, didn't estimate correctly? How can we improve next time? The end of a project is a new opportunity to grow as a team, as an organization, as a project manager. I do think that using good tools, also knowing best practices can be very useful in managing the projects we have, but we don't want to forget the most important thing ever. Unless the Lord builds the house, and that's a project, those who build it labor in vain. I don't want that the result of this workshop is, okay, I need to study more on the skills of management. I think they can be useful. But the main goal of this workshop is encouraging each one of you, myself first, to rely on God's work, to trust on Him, to ask Him to give us a clearer vision of what He really wants us to build in our life, in our organization, in our churches, and depend on His work. We have the privilege of being co-worker, but He is the one. He only is the one who builds the house.